Okay. Hi, welcome everybody. This is Dr. John, and this is week one of new media marketing. Um, and we've got a lot of things that we can talk about today. Uh, as I was sitting down going through everything, and I was like, there's no way this is all going to be covered in an hour. And one of the reasons that's going to be the case, I'm going to introduce you to a lot of material that I think you may have. If you have a marketing background, you've probably touched on some of it. If you don't have a marketing background, and all these courses are your real first introduction into marketing, I think you'll find that this is the foundation that you need. So the question is, why right now? Well, because this class, new media marketing, we're going to do marketing, but we're going to do it through other people. And so that means our skill level at what we're doing has got to be at an extraordinary height. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with a number of concepts. And as I'm thinking about this, I may schedule a supplemental on Thursday to cover what we don't cover today. And then we'll have two sessions this week. So welcome, Melissa.
Hi.
Hi. And let me pull up my slides. And I'll share my screen a little bit. This is the tough part, and I apologize. I should have had all this worked out earlier. But my excuse is that we're getting a new water heater today, and I spent part of the morning in the garage with the plumber. All right, so I'm just making sure I got everything I want to talk about handy, and things I don't want to talk about. Okay, so much to do. Let's stop horsing around. So let's bring Zoom up and share screen. And I'm not going to project these today. I'm just going to go through them one at a time. Can you read that okay? Yeah, all right. Keep your mic on, because if you give me feedback and ask questions as we're going, I think you'll get the most out of it. That way, who knows, you may get more than what I planned based on the questions. So you get a bonus, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you, what do you think new media is, new media marketing?
So kind of what I was reading, everything, it's basically just using like new media to do marketing with, obviously, but it's usually through social media is how we do a lot of it. And just kind of how you approach the marketing is different than like traditional marketing. So examples would be like utilizing, Facebook, websites, Instagram, influencers, brand ambassadors, things like that, versus your traditional print, news, radio, TV.
Yeah, actually, that's very good. I never can find the book that I want when I want it. And it's supposed to be right here. Ah. That's because I've got it somewhere else. I got it right over here. So this is not the required text for the course, but it's a very good book. Get into what media is. So if we're dealing with new media, it might be a good foundation to understand what old media is, or better yet, just what media is in general. This is written by Lewis. That's the forward. Book is written, I'm like, that's not who wrote this book. By Marshall McLuhan. Have you ever heard that name before?
No.
Okay. So Marshall McLuhan wrote this in like the 60s. And yes, we were talking about media, new media in the 60s. And McLuhan, he coined the phrase, the medium is the message. Have you ever heard that? Oh, that's a big one. The medium is the message. And so when you think about it, and we can do this real easy. If I tell you that the medium that we're going to be using is Instagram, what can you tell me about the message?
Like the format of the message is probably going to be a photograph or a video. You know, that it's probably going to be pretty quick and to the point, stylized.
Yes, exactly. It's going to be a visual message. Okay. So the medium has defined what the message will be.
Gotcha.
He wrote that the content of any medium is always another medium. Think about that. We said Instagram, and so Instagram is a medium, but what is the content? It's a picture or a video, and in themselves, they're a medium as well. So
right.
The content of any medium is always another medium. Mass media is not audience size, but rather that everyone becomes involved at once at the same time. So it's a ubiquitous transfer of knowledge. And that's, so we can take these principles that were written all the way back in '62, and we can apply it to what we're doing today on the internet. That's the amazing thing.
Yeah.
So as we're going to be talking about using, and we actually don't talk that much about it. We don't talk that much about all the social media channels, but you have to really understand social in order to be a good new media marketer. Now, okay, so I just said we're not going to spend that much time on the social component. That's because what we're going to spend time on is the influencers. Okay, or in other words, what we're going to do is we're going to take our market and we're going to segment it, and we're going to segment it into three groupings. Those that are our customer. I'm getting way ahead of myself. I'm like on slide 28 right now. We're going to segment it in such a way that we identify customers, that we identify fans, and then we're going to identify influencers that are in our market. Now, segmentation is interesting. Back when I was VP of marketing for a company called Beautiful Views, we segmented our market based on product. So we had a segment that we focused on in terms of replacement screens for windows. We had a market that was replacement screens for doors. And then we had a segment that was outdoor living that was motorized screens for big outdoor living area spaces. So you can segment a lot of different ways, but for this class, the segmentation that we're looking at is customer, fan, and then influencer.
Cool.
So what I hope to cover today, and it ain't going to happen, a course overview so that you understand how the course is going to work. Review the assignment for week 1 and the discussion and what you should be getting out of those. And then begin to review concepts that are important to this course. That's where I think we're going to get bogged down, because there's so many concepts that need to be discussed that it's going to be a bit of a challenge. And I'll start today with the 2 big ones, which are personas and goal setting, because they're integral to the assignment. And then we'll come back and discuss a bevy of other concepts as we move forward, which are important to the course, but I need to think about whether I can stage those more in week 2 or week 3. So, all right, so what does the course look like? Well, week 1, we focus on personas and goals. Now, that can be a really easy topic or it can be a really difficult topic. If it's a really easy topic, your grade is a C. If it's a really difficult topic, then you're probably going to get a B or an A, because it takes some research and it takes some work. Week 2. Week 2 is actually the easiest week in this course, because what you do is you take the persona that you develop in week 1. Now, a persona, another way to think of it, it's a template. So you take the persona in week 1 and you go shopping using that persona to find influencers or fans, depending on the strategy that you decided. And you want to find real people on the internet. So again, you're doing research. And
Okay.
The toughest part of week 2 is not just going out. I have people that just go out and name 3 names. Michelle Obama is going to be an influencer for me. Oprah Winfrey is going to be an influencer for me. No way in heck is that ever going to happen. Not only that, what segment of your market are they going to influence? Who are they addressing? Now, that comes back to your persona and understanding your persona. So week 2, you got to do some shopping, but you've got to be able to say for each persona that you pick, how's that going to affect, or for each influencer that you pick, what segment of your personas are they addressing, or what aspect of your personas are they addressing? That might be a better way to put it. So, for example, you may have you come up with a persona, and sometimes they like Instagram, sometimes they like Twitter, sometimes they like, nobody likes Pinterest, do they? That's like Pinterest.
Some people. Not a big one.
90% female that are on Pinterest. Did you know that?
I did. I recently was doing some market research for a marketing plan, and recently found out those demographics of who uses what, like social media platforms. I was actually looking at that.
I've got a great graphic. It is right here. I don't even have Pinterest on here, but among U.S. adults who say they use Facebook, the percentage is, I'm sorry, I said this wrong. Among U.S. adults who say they use social media, 74% are on Facebook.
Yeah.
63% on Instagram. This number just absolutely astounds me, just because of how quickly it grew. 61% on Snapchat, 51% on YouTube. Now, YouTube's interesting. YouTube is actually either the second or the third most active search engine on the internet.
Yeah.
But yet, only 51% are of people that use social media. And why is YouTube considered a social media? Do you know?
I mean, they have the capability of having subscriptions and putting out regular content, just like Instagram. I imagine that like capability is there.
They have the capability of the 3 R's plus comments. And the 3 R's are reviews, ratings, and recommendations.
Yeah.
We'll come back to the 3 R's later. And then 42% on Twitter. Twitter has a very, very small number of people using social media that are on it. And what's interesting, though, because you're in the degree program, you'll have me in month 9. And the topic that we talk about are newsworthy events in month 9. You'll learn how to develop a newsworthy event. And what you'll find is that there's actually 2 types of newsworthy events. Real newsworthy events and pseudo events.
Like ones that you create, right?
The ones you create. And the media, now this time I'm using the media to mean the news media, oftentimes will create pseudo events by going in and finding a very, very minority opinion, because we know it's minority to begin with. And when I say minority, I mean a smaller percent of the population, because Twitter is, out of everybody that uses social media, only 42% use Twitter. So it's a small percent to begin with. They go then find whatever point they're trying to make. You can always find somebody. And they'll use that tweet and amplify it to make it seem like the entire world is saying this, and thus creating a pseudo event around it. But anyway, that's the percent usage, and that comes from Pew Research in 2019. So that's pretty relative.
Nice.
Okay, so then week 3, we have to develop a plan for how to recruit. So we've decided that we're either going to follow an influencer strategy or a fan strategy. And this will make more sense in a few moments. But in either case, you're then going to have to go out and recruit those individuals. So what does your pitch look like? What is your offer for those individuals that you're doing? And that's the plan that you develop in week 3. Then finally, in week 4, we've got to figure out, now, what makes digital marketing different from regular marketing?
Your capability of.
If you say the word digital, I'm going to end this session immediately.
No, I think it's a lot of it's like your capability of, keeping track of everything. You're measuring everything. You're able to see actual records of like what's working, what's not working, and make an adjustment. I think is the biggest positive about digital marketing, and just your ability to measure it and manipulate it in a timely manner, in a really quick manner too. We
can make changes inexpensively, relatively speaking. But what we're after is optimization.
Right.
So what we want to be able to do is to optimize our efforts, and we can do that quickly and efficiently and effectively because we've got data.
Right.
Everything that we do online, we can do we've got data to support it. You know, it's interesting. I was hearing there's 2 schools out west in California that just received a grant from some nonprofit to develop apps for contact tracing.
Mm-hmm.
So they're checking behavior when there might be an exposure to a virus like the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a scary proposition in one sense because it's social monitoring is what it is. And that's what happens in China.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading something the other day that in China, if you try to go off the grid, the average amount of time before you're apprehended by police, and there was a couple studies done with regard to this, so the data is pretty good. If you try to go off the grid, it takes them 7 minutes to find you.
Wow, that's fast.
The problem, our problem is, do you have an iPhone?
Absolutely.
Have you enabled locations?
I try not to. I only do it when
matter.
I'm using apps. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Your phone knows where you are all the time.
Oh yeah.
Anytime they want to tap into the data, it's there.
Yeah,
it's that simple.
definitely.
Okay, so week 4, it's about measurement, so we can optimize our actions, be able to fine tune what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the week 1 assignment, the discussion. I want to make mention, I'm not going to go into great detail today, but I want to talk about what APA is because as graduate students, you're expected to do APA. Now, where'd you get your degree from?
My bachelor's from UCF.
From UCF. And the papers that you had to turn in at UCF, were they held to a certain standard?
Yes.
And was that APA?
Usually it was either APA or the other one, MLS. I forget. It's been a long time. But
Well,
definitely research style.
Normally, if you're in any social science other than sociology, and that includes regular sciences as well as social sciences. It includes everything but any of the creative writing, literature, fine arts. Those type of degrees, you're probably going to be writing MLS standards. If you're in a sociology program, you're going to be writing the ASA, American Sociology Association standards. They just couldn't get along with the psychologists is what it boiled down to. And everything else is psychology. The APA is the American Psychology Association. And the reason for that is psychology is the study of how we, right, the id, interacts in society, right?
Right.
So it's about how we deal with people, and whether you're in management, whether you're in management, whether you're in education, whether you're in marketing, you're dealing with people. You have to have an understanding of people. So that's why the umbrella organization is APA. Now, APA is writing standards, and so there's formatting and the way that you approach writing are the two components of APA. Guess what? In this class, there are no APA papers. Everything is a presentation other than your discussion post. Let me talk about discussion posts. Discussion posts are not Facebook posts. It's kind of ironic that we're talking social media posts and saying it's not that when we're in a new media marketing class. Your discussions are a reflection of your critical thinking. So you have a prompt, you do whatever the prompt says, and then you think about it, and then you research. So let's take a look at the anatomy of a discussion. So with a discussion, you read whatever it is, the material, or watch the video, or whatever the case may be, but you read to make sure that you understand the prompts. If you have to respond to a classmate, you want to read the classmate's post. So basically, you're taking in information. We'll call it reading. Your next task is to think about what you just read. That's the critical thinking. And really, this boils down to a simple question. Do you agree with it, or do you disagree with it? So if you agree with what you looked at, then what you want to do is see if you can challenge or add additional support to the concept. And the way that you do that is by then doing additional research. If, on the other hand, you disagree with what's written, you need to do research in order to support your point of view and provide that research. So, and then finally, you got to share whatever you found from research. You got to then put it into the post. So I call this the R4 roadmap. It's read, reflect, research, and respond. In other words, don't respond without having done the reflection and the research. And what you want to do, so everybody responds to the initial post, and probably a lot of the discussion posts on initials always look the same. But maybe some differences. Maybe somebody offers a point of view that's a little bit different. If they've provided the in-text citation and the reference, it's real easy for you to go back and say, well, let me see if I come to the same conclusion by reading what they read. And so many times you'll find that you come up with a different point of view. You're like, how did they come up with that? Quite honestly, as a student, I will tell you that's my favorite time. When I can academically point out that something was misinterpreted or overlooked or whatnot. Of course, always in a professional manner, never mean. I'm not a mean person. Well, sometimes I am. But to do it, that used to give me a lot of good satisfaction. But it is the way that we learn. It's great critical thinking. And I happen to think discussion posts are the crux of where our learning comes from in a master's program. So that's why, you have to do 3 posts. You have to do the initial response and then 2 additional posts by Sunday night. If you miss the Wednesday deadline, I want you still to respond. I'm not going to take all your points away because you missed the deadline. As a matter of fact, if you get it in by Thursday morning before I look, I'm probably not going to take any points away regardless. In my courses, I do not teach behaviors. You're adults. you've got careers, you know what deadlines are, you know when you're not going to make a deadline, you need to let somebody know. So I don't, very seldom do I penalize somebody for tardiness. It's only when, you know, if I get to Monday and I'm looking at the discussion thread and somebody's giving me 1 or 2 response posts, but no initial discussion, they lose a ton of points because that initial response is worth 50 points.
Mm.
All
Makes
right.
sense.
So, and the other thing is, if anybody is having issues, call me. Don't send me an email. Send me a text to my phone number, 407-267-8600. And you know, let's solve the problem. And you'll find I'm a great problem solver and a great partner. But if I'm not brought into what the issue is, I can't help. And that's when grades suffer, when things are never ever turned in. Boy, that was a rant. That was a soapbox. Okay, so let's get rid of this, the R4. And now, let's see, a 4-term and a 5-term. Oh. I wanted to talk about this. But I pulled up the wrong class. Here, I'll do this just so you all can see what the back end looks like. This is the back end, and right now, these are all the classes I'm dealing with. So let me bring this over. Let's try this again. Everybody, Melissa, before I turned on the recorder, Melissa had asked about the final project asset folder. That is a piece of this course that is kind of owned collectively by the Full Sail Digital Marketing Graduate Program. And I didn't realize that it was in as bad a shape as it is. And I just asked for clarification and whatever assets need to be provided because I don't have the assets. And as I said, very seldom do I even look in there to see if anybody made any changes to what I think is in there. It's something I probably should do on a more regular basis. But at any rate, I'll have more information on that today, and I'll communicate that. So, ding, 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 ding. So let me go through this, and I wanted to talk for a moment about the case study company that you have. So there's 4 points I want you to know about your case study. You can see that okay, right? Can you read it
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah.
I can blow it up more if you want.
Oh, it's fine.
Okay. So the important thing to understand about your case study companies, case studies provide a target to benchmark in research. So in other words, when in a graduate program, the concept that we're really working on, and probably the easiest way to explain this is that as graduate students, you're dealing with strategic thinking. As undergraduate students, you're learning how to do things. In simple terms, as an undergrad, you're learning how to make meatloaf. As a graduate student, you're learning what to do with the meatloaf. Okay? So, and what we do is we present theoretical scenarios that are what we would call ideal situations. And then what we need to do is identify where we currently are, which would be the current state or the as-is state. And what's that other hand? Woo! All blurry as my camera froze. So that other hand that's out there, we want to be able to move the organization from point A to point B. Here's point B. From point A to point B, and so we need an entity for you to look at. That's why we have you choose a case study company. Now, so what they do is they provide an architectural framework that we can then apply our theories to, and we can do research that we discuss in the course and apply it to our case study company. You don't have to, so that's all it is. It's just this fuzzy model that's sitting out there that you can work with. You can take poetic license with that company anytime you want when you integrate your case study into your coursework. And what you're doing is remember, you're defining the current state, what's the theoretical or the ideal state, and how do I move this company from point A to point B? If you try to look for specific examples within the company for how they move from point A to point B, you're never going to find it. So you got to be creative. You got to pretend that you're like a CEO or you're a consultant coming in and working for that company. When I did my master's program, the way that where we did our case study work was in learning teams. And what I did is I created a consulting company called Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Do you know who they are?
Yes.
Who are they?
Oh, goodness. Fairy tale characters. I can't remember from what exactly.
Not quite fairy tale, but they're characters from literature. They're in Shakespeare's
Oh, that's right.
Hamlet. They are
That's
friends
right.
of Hamlet that his uncle, the king, hires as consultants to influence Hamlet not to come back to the court.
10th grade English is coming back to me.
And of course, because we have the entire story of Hamlet before us, we know they fail. So I created that company kind of tongue in cheek, that I was naming the company after the first 2 consultants in literature record, but not only the first 2 in literature record, but the first 2 in literature record that failed. So it was kind of a very, very bad pun on my part, and only a couple of my professors got it, which I was always very proud of them when they did. So you were on the right track. At any rate, again, you're just using that company to advance you. So you could be the chief marketing officer for that company. You could be the chief executive officer. You could be a consultant, but you're going to have to decide what that company needs to do from time to time. I'll give you a great example. When we get to when your cohort gets to public relations and you're creating a newsworthy event, if you try to find a newsworthy event that your company had, it may never have had one.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to create something out of thin air.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on your case study company, in case nobody has ever laid that out in that manner. All right, so coming back to the platform. Hi, I'm your instructor. What you may not know about me is I've been just about everything. I started as a jeweler, and I've worked for large corporations, and I've worked for really large corporations. I've been a internal consultant for the Walt Disney Company, and I've consulted on projects ranging from huge technology implementations to huge organization designs. And I've worked with clients from international development at Disney to Walt Disney World Sales and Marketing Group. So I've kind of got a diverse background. Make sure you watch the videos, and the one in particular, the two in particular that I want you to make sure you watch are my teaching philosophy and then what it means to be a master's student. And in a nutshell, in a master's student, you got to do research. So the assignments in my courses will not always be fully defined because you may have to research the area that we're talking about. So I'm not going to force feed you. And then the second thing is you got to research in order to solve the problem that you're working on. And you'll see how that comes into play with week one. And so just some more stuff that you can look at. I highly encourage you to do it, because then you'll get to know who I am and you'll know how to interact with me better. Welcome to New Media Marketing, course overviews, and then books and material that you can find from the O'Reilly Learning Library. Now, the only book that is extremely important that you use in this course is Think Like a Rock Star by Matt Collier. And this is what the soft cover looks like. But it's in O'Reilly, and I tell everybody that, you know, I'm not just a course director, I'm a stakeholder, because I have multiple children that are attending or have attended and graduated from Full Sail. And one of them graduated from this program, and she told me, she goes, "Dad, this was the best book. It's the only book that I read from cover to cover in my entire program." I felt so proud. And then I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "Because it's a really simple read." It is 194 pages, but I got to tell you, it's easy reading. So make sure that you read it, because it is the way that I grade assignments. So if you haven't read it, and as a matter of fact, if you haven't read it, you'll automatically lose 5. If you don't include, let me put it this way, if you don't include Think Like a Rock Star in your reference list, and have incorporated something from Think Like a Rock Star in your presentation, you lose anywhere from 5 to 15 points. That's how important it is to the program. Okay, so there's the reading information and other stuff I'm not going to go into. I provide you a lot of additional resources so you can take a look at it. But again, the textbook for this course is Think Like a Rock Star. And even though I may not have you read everything, I would encourage you to read everything. The community discussion board is really there for you all. Professionalism. Everybody grades professionalism. I will tell you one quick story with regard to professionalism. I had a student that had some, I don't even remember what the issues were. And I gave them the opportunity, something I very rarely do. I gave them the opportunity after the end of the semester to submit the assignment. So I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And the end of the first week comes and I haven't received it. And so what do? I gave a 0. Now the person ended up going from I want to say a 75. Well, if they had done the assignment and they had received full credit, they would have been at an 81. So they would have had a B. So I give the 0 and it shows up, and next thing I know, I'm getting a nasty email. You said I could turn this in late. I did. I said, I have no record of it being turned in. How did you turn it in? And person wrote and told me, and I said, no, I don't have any record of that. We spent another week exchanging emails, and the person, and I'm like, if you send it, call me immediately and tell me to look for it here because I'm not seeing it. And that way we can track it down. Finally, at the end of the second week, I picked the phone up and I called the individual. I'm like, this is stupid. This is an easy way to handle this. Person says, well, the person doesn't answer. But next thing I know, I have another email that says, how dare you call me? I'm taking this was back when the program was called Internet Marketing. I'm an internet marketer. I'm taking an online course. If I wanted to speak to somebody, I would have done something on campus. And I wrote back and I said, I'm online right now. Send me to this email. Take this email, put your assignment in and send it back and I'll grade it. So after 2 weeks, I finally got the paper and I graded it. I don't remember the grade, but her final score ended up being an 81. So she got a B. But I had yet to take any deductions or even look at the professionalism grade. And I thought about it and I looked at it and I adjusted the professionalism grade from 10 to 0. So while they got 8 points for turning in the assignment, they lost 10 for a net of -2. And they went from a C to a D.
Yeah.
The moral of the story is just be nice. Treat your instructor, and whether it's me or anybody, just treat them nicely. Because learning how to manage the instructor is half the game. Okay? All right. So, yeah, I think I wrote in here timeliness, respect, preparation, attentiveness, compliance with all full sail policies and all that stuff. Be nice. All right. The community discussion board is for everybody else. The Zoom room, and I've got all the dates, and like when this is over and this converts, I'll put the I hadn't thought this through. This is new with the Zoom archive. I will probably either put it on Vimeo or YouTube and give you the link to where the archive is. That's probably the simplest thing to do. So that'll go in there. Okay, week 1, the customer, the influencer, and the fan. Here's the actual reading assignment for week 1. the discussion is kind of interesting. You're going to use marketing profs, and you want to pick one of those sessions and listen to it or read through it. There's summaries at marketing profs, so you don't have to watch it or listen to it necessarily. But what you want to do then is you want to take that subject and think about how that applies to social and how it applies to influencer marketing, and make that connection. And that's the prompt for your discussion. Now, in addition to those, you're welcome to come up to the messages and you can watch the interview that I did last week with John Taffer, as we talked about. And John Taffer is from Paramount Network's show on Sunday nights, Bar Rescue. John talks about what marketing will look like in the post-COVID-19 environment. Now, he focuses a lot on location-based businesses. And many of our students, and I haven't gotten to know all your case study companies yet, but many of you all have location-based businesses that you're doing, not just dealing with the terrestrial component, but you're obviously dealing with the digital marketing component. So I think it's a great session. It's 40 minutes total, and you'll get a lot out of it. So you can choose to do that, or you can do one of the marketing profs podcasts. It's your call. See, I told you we weren't going to get through everything. And then finally, we get to the assignment. Let me ask you, are you on a tight 1 hour? Can you give me an extra 10 or 15?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think the two things I do want to cover, make sure at least I touch on them today. It's going to take a little bit more time than 4 minutes. Okay, so personas, you're going to take the segments that we identified. Now, where do those segments come from? Well, Collier you read that okay?
It's really small. It's hard to read.
Yeah. Essentially, what Collier's saying is that depending on the size of the market, and those that have a high brand loyalty, those are people that are out in the wings of the bell curve, and so those are people that are brand advocates. They maybe they might be well, they're either going to be fans or they're going to be brand advocates. And then everybody else, so on that diagram, way out there, that's where there's a tremendous amount of brand loyalty. And so those are our fans, okay, for the business. Everybody else is either a potential customer or a customer. And for that purpose, we treat them the same. So you'll want to develop your personas for 3 groups: customer, brand advocates, which we'll see could be fans or possibly, well, we're gonna call them fans, make it clear. And then you're going to develop a persona for an influencer. So let me talk about the difference between an influencer and a brand advocate, or Don't want to say brand advocate. I want to say fan. I want to keep it simple. So fans are your brand's most loyal customers. These are people that you know, they talk about the product all the time. They if they hear something negative being said about the product, their ears perk up and they want to jump into the conversation, and they want to provide an alternate point of view. Probably the greatest example and one of the biggest fan bases around a product that you'll ever find is Apple. Apple fans actually saved the company time and time again as it dealt with market forces that were looking to knock it out of the personal computer business. And look at Apple today. It is, it's half the market. When it started, it was just a niche. Excuse me. No tissues. Oi, oi, oi. Okay, I'm fine. I talked myself out of it. So that's who fans are. But you need to do research, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Then we want to talk about influencers. Influencers, they have some affinity either for our brand or our industry. And they are online, and they're communicating about the affinity for your brand or similar brands or your industry that you're in. So what you need to do is create personas for an influencer. Because even though you may think of somebody that comes to mind that writes about your brand's industry or your brand in particular, that may not be the case, or they may not do it in each different channel. So you want to find, when you create your persona, it should be like a Frankenstein. It should be the combination of research where you identified this influencer to model from, this influencer to model from, and this influencer to model from. You put it all together, and that's what your persona for an influencer looks like. Okay? The same is true for a fan. Now, where do you find your fans? Well, you can first do some research, some general secondary research, and see if anything's been written about the fans or the customers of your brand, because you need to do a persona for the customer as well. And then what you want to do is action research, just like you did for the influencer. But now you want to go to your brand's social media sites and look and see if you can find people that from the general description of what a fan or a customer is, if you can find those people, and then learn more about them. So basically, I'm giving you carte blanche to become an internet detective, or as some of us might say, an internet stalker. If you're on, I should have done this on May the 4th, because now it's going to be lame. But you're either on the light side of the force and you're a detective, or you're on the dark side of the force and you're a stalker, right? That joke really doesn't work in June. I know it didn't work now either, but I'm here all week. So the way we do persona research, we start out by doing secondary research in Google, research in Google Scholar, research in the Full Sail Online Library, and see what you can find about customers and fans. Start with customers, and then the fans will kind of rise to the top out of that. But what can you generally find, and then move from that information into actually taking a look at social media channels where these people are interacting with the brand. Now, if by chance you have a brand that does nothing on social media, take a look at competitors and build your persona based on what the competitor's social media channel, people that are interacting with it, what they look like. So that's why I say this is not just picking some stuff out of it. You know, I think a fan is this. I think a customer is this. You got to do the research, and you need to show me that in your references for this presentation. If I don't see it in the references, then it doesn't carry as much weight. Now, let me talk for a moment again about influencers, and say there's a difference between a spokesperson and an influencer. A spokesperson is somebody that we're paying, and we're handing them a script, and we're saying this is what you need to say. You can add a little bit more into it to make it your own, but this is what you got to cover, and this is when you got to cover it. So this is when you got to communicate. This is what you got to communicate, and we're very specific. And the way that we do that is we pay them big bucks. That's why celebrity spokespeople. Now, back in the early days of the web, there were no internet celebrities. Now we got internet celebrities, so we got to watch out for it too. And that's where it gets dicey. When does an influencer become an internet celebrity? When they're more famous about them than what they're writing about or what they're communicating about. You want to stay clear of celebrities and of internet celebrities. You want to focus on influencers. Now, the reality is, what influencers are today, they are really new media journalists. So they're people out there, they have their own brand, but their brand aligns with either your industry or your brand, and so they've got lots to write about. They're promoting themselves, but they're also promoting these tangible brands and industries that are related to them. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to tell you with regard to personas. Actually, there are. So here's some things to think about with regard to personas. Can you read these okay?
Yeah.
All right. Essentially, there we go. Knew something was missing. So personas, we want to begin to classify our personas in and look at factors from 4 different domains. Their geographic domain, their demographic domain, their psychographic domain, and behavioral. Now, you're probably very familiar with geographics and demographics. What are psychographics? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, like I think it was last class, we talked about psychographics, and it's kind of like everything you have listed there, really. It's like, it's the person's attitude, their values, kind of the things they're into, lifestyle, stuff like that, is the psychographics, kind of how they think and how they behave. Well, not really behave, but how they think, their values.
I ran out of space. AIO is activities, interests, and opinions.
Okay. I was going to ask what that was.
But yeah, psychographics are driven by our values, our worldview, and our the way we think about things. And then behavioral are those outward actions that affect us. So you want to, when you're creating a persona, you probably want to take at least 3 different things Why 3? Because I want quantity. and at least talk about 12 different items on your persona card that you build for each of your different personas. And so you want to research, you know, geographics, demographics, psychographics, and behavioral, and pick 3 of those from each column to research and discuss as you build your 3 different personas. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And another tool that can help you with that is the 5 rings of buyer insight. Now, if your job is just to create personas, and you're working for a large brand or a large marketing agency, you're probably doing it by interviews. And you're targeting people who have recently made the buying decision, and that, or haven't made the buying decision, but have associated with your brand, and you want to influence them. So some of the questions that you know you're looking at is, what would make you decide to buy X products, or a specific product if you want to be specific? How do you feel when you interact with this? What barriers are preventing you from interacting or from purchasing or whatnot? And what features do you specifically look at to evaluate to make your buying decision? If you can use those to help guide your research, now you're not going to have opportunity to actually interview people, but as you're looking at research, be thinking about those questions, and can you answer it from the data that you're looking at? All right. Oh, I was writing them out there. I didn't finish this morning. Okay. Last topic. Strategic goal setting. So one of the things that we ask you to do in this is to talk about your goals, and to set macro and micro goals. I hate the terms macro and micro. Eventually I'll stop using them, but I hate them, because really what we're dealing with is the corporate goal, which is the mission statement or the vision statement. Let me explain to you what the requirements are for a mission statement. A mission statement has to answer 3 questions. Why does the business exist today? For whom? And to what extent? The reason I tell you that now is because if you're in the degree cohort, it comes back to bite you in month 9. So understand your case study company's mission and vision. If they don't have one, make one up. That's that part about being CEO. As a matter of fact, you know, a lot of people think mission and vision and all that is something that is done by group decision making, and it may be refined by the group decision making process, but the reality is that always comes from the owner or the executive, the CEO. Okay. Objectives and goals. What are objectives and goals? Because that's the next thing. Well, an objective is, how are we going to achieve our mission? That's a top tier objective. And an objective is a statement. It's a affirmation. You know, one of my mission statement may be something to the effect that I want to be the coffee provider to the world. And so one of my objectives might be that I need to show continual growth. Well, that's an affirmation, but it doesn't tell me much. If I take that and put numbers to it, so how much do I need to grow? Well, I need to grow. I need to grow comparatively 10% this year. So 10% growth in sales. Now that's a goal. What I did is I took the objective and I put numbers to it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a SMART goal? The answer is no. SMART goals, do you know what the acronym stands for?
Oh my gosh. It's like simple, achievable, or measurable. I don't remember.
So SMART goals, it's specific, it's
Specific.
measurable, it's achievable, it's relevant, R is relevant, and T is timely. So let's talk about what the relevant means. Relevant means, does it align back in this goal structure? So if we're at the top tier objectives and goals, does that goal that I just gave you, does that relate back to the mission statement? If it does, if it aligns, it supports the mission statement, then it's relevant. If I just pick some goal out of the clear blue sky that has nothing to do with the mission statement, then it's not relevant, and it won't become a SMART goal. The other thing that we have to do is put a time frame in place. What's the time frame? Well, over the next year, I want to increase sales by 10%. Or over the next year, I want to see a monthly increase of 5% over previous year's sales. I'm putting some sort of time component in there. Okay. The other piece that you can add, but it doesn't have to be implicit. It doesn't have to be explicit. It can be implicit, and that is the measurement piece. So you might want to say that the goal is that we want to increase monthly sales by 5%, measuring at the end of each fiscal month. And now I've defined how we're going to measure it. Okay. You don't always have to put that in. You will in month 3, in week 4, by the way, because we get real specific. But that when you do all those things, you're now making a SMART goal. Okay. So you first start with the objective, add numbers to it, and then add the other components to it to make it SMART. And that's what a SMART goal is. Then the next thing we have to say is, well, gee, how are we going to achieve a 5%? What did I say? 5 or 10%? Doesn't matter. How are we going to achieve a 10% monthly sales increase this year, month to month? How are we going to do that? What things can we do that will help us achieve that goal, or that goal? So now we start listing strategies. We're going to do X, we're going to do Y, we're going to do Z. In reality, those strategies, because they don't have numbers to them, are nothing more than what? Objectives. So the strategy actually becomes a second tier objective. And for example, how are we going to achieve that 10%? Well, I'm going to have an influencer marketing plan. I'm going to launch brand ambassadors. I'm going to launch an email campaign. Those are strategies to help achieve that goal. And I rattled some off. The email is not necessarily relevant for this course, but it's certainly a strategy that can be deployed. Or I could say we're going to launch a very aggressive AdWords campaign, or we're going to do a very aggressive display ads on Facebook. Now, why are they not relevant? Because they are not those are paid activities, and we're not dealing with paid activities right at the moment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we can take a strategy and then we can apply numbers to it, and we can develop a second tier goal from that strategy. And then if we apply the SMART principles to the goal, we'll have a SMART goal that we can work with. And it's by doing that, by working down the structure that way, that we're then able to begin to understand how we manage our program. So let me give you another way to look at this. We have a high level mission, then we have objectives. We turn the objectives into goals. We then ask the question, how do we achieve that objective, or how do we achieve that goal? We develop strategies. We turn those into goals, and then we say, what are the tactics that we need to do in order to achieve that? And once we get down to the tactical level, now we're at something that we can actually measure. So I left the word goal out of this model because the idea is that we're driving from top tier down to individual items that can be measured. And that's what a tactic is. It's an individual item that can be measured. Now, what's the difference between a KPI and a metric? Do you know?
I don't remember.
So metrics are anything that we can measure.
Right.
KPIs, key performance indicators, are those items that we look at and we say, if we do this, we're going to be successful. It's that measuring that is that important to the overall objective that we're working towards, or the overall goal that we're working towards. So in each of those, in this case, this is I've given you a lot of different objectives and strategies that you can work with. Actually, what I did is I set up 3 objectives here at the top tier, and then at the second tier for each objective, I identified 2 strategies, and then the tactics, you're just going to list as many other tactics as you can list that you would do. What time is it? 12:22. So that's personas and goal setting. Make sense? What questions do you have?
I don't think any right now.
Let me just. So things that we'll discuss on Thursday. We're going to take a look at I got things written in too many different places. Look, this is a Starbucks book. I will give you a template that you can use for personas. I'm going to provide this slide for helping you with regard to goals. Then we're going to look at conversion funnels. Have you talked about conversion funnels?
Yes, pretty briefly.
We're going to talk about the customer journey. Have you talked about the customer journey?
Yeah.
Probably not the way that I do. We're going to talk about content marketing. Have you talked about content marketing?
Not as much, no.
Okay. We're not going to do a lot, but just some basic principles. And then we're going to talk about, so the difference between media channels and marketing channels. So we'll explore that, because I've been dancing around the topic of media channels without going into a full explanation, but we'll do that on Thursday. So we did the heavy lifting today. This was the big heavy lifting for the for week 1. Okay. Oh,
Okay,
and the other thing that I'll do on Thursday, I was writing something that began with a Z too. I don't know what I was writing. This is what happens when you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. By the time noon comes, you're ready for dinner and a nap. The other thing that I want to talk about are presentations and presentation skills, and briefly just say that marketers are expected to have kick-ass. Am I allowed to say that on Zoom? You're expected to have kick-ass presentations, because marketing is, people confuse marketing and advertising all the time. And so when it comes to presenting, people expect you to have good stuff. And we want to talk about the best way to present and the best practices and so forth. So some of our students seem to have the skills, and others don't. I want to make sure we're all on the same playing field. Okay?
All right, sounds good.
On a fist to 5 in terms of value of today?
Of a fist of 5, I would say for sure 5.
Sure, 5. Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, have fun and be safe out there.
Thanks.
And remember, don't just search. Research. Okay?
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.